What if I told you that one man wrote a book so controversial, so intense, that it divided the world into two camps, those who despised him and those who couldn't stop talking about him? A man who burned so brightly with his ideas that he couldn't bear to live beyond 23 years. Meet Otto Weininger. Some thinkers shine a light on the world. Others dig into its darkest corners. Otto was the latter. He was a young philosopher who asked questions most people are too afraid to ask, and answered them in ways that shocked the world. At just 23, he wrote a book that became infamous. Months later, he ended his own life. Who was Otto Weininger? And why are his ideas still talked about today, more than a century after his death? Otto Weininger was born in Vienna in 1880, a city that was alive with creativity and turmoil. Vienna wasn't just the birthplace of artists and composers, it was a breeding ground for big ideas. Freud was there, working on psychoanalysis. Mahler was conducting symphonies. It was the perfect place for a restless, curious mind like Otto's. Otto came from a Jewish family, but religion didn't play a big role in his early life. What did shape him, though, was his hunger for knowledge. By the time he was a teenager, he was already diving into philosophy, science, literature, anything that could help him understand the human condition. Weininger's main obsession was identity. He believed that every person is made up of two fundamental forces, the masculine and the feminine. But here's the twist. He didn't mean this in a biological sense. For him, masculine and feminine were metaphysical principles, almost like energies. The masculine, according to Otto, represented reason, morality, and individuality, the things that make us think deeply and act with purpose. The feminine, on the other hand, represented chaos, emotionality, and what he saw as a lack of individuality. Now, before you start throwing things at the screen, remember, this was written in 1903, and it's Otto's perspective, not ours. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Weininger didn't think men were fully masculine or women fully feminine. He believed every individual has a mix of these two forces. A man could have feminine traits, and a woman could have masculine traits. It was about balance or imbalance. He didn't just want answers, he wanted truth. And he was willing to dig into the darkest, most uncomfortable parts of life to find it. Otto studied philosophy and psychology at the University of Vienna. But he didn't care much for following the rules. He was more interested in forming his own ideas than memorizing someone else's. One of the ideas that obsessed Otto was genius. To him, genius wasn't just about talent, it was about living a life dedicated to truth, individuality, and higher values. He believed that genius wasn't something you were born with, it was something you had to become. For Otto, individuality was the key. He thought most people lived ordinary lives, following the crowd and avoiding deep questions. But the genius stood alone, driven by a need to rise above mediocrity. This obsession with individuality also shaped Otto's views on morality and love, which we'll get to in a bit. But first, let's talk about why he thought most people couldn't achieve genius. According to Weininger, genius required a strong connection to the masculine essence, the part of us that values logic, reason, and morality. He believed most people were stuck in the feminine essence, which he saw as emotional, dependent, and chaotic. Love, sex, and the battle within love. What could be more universal? Yet, Otto Weininger saw love not as a fairy tale, but as a battlefield, a clash of the deepest forces within us. For him, love wasn't about chemistry or soulmates. It was about two opposing forces, masculine and feminine, locked in a constant push and pull. Weininger thought that most people approach love in the wrong way. When we fall in love, we often seek something we think we're missing. A man might look for nurturing or softness in a woman. A woman might seek strength or protection in a man. But Otto believed this kind of love was based on weakness. It was a crutch, not a connection. To Otto, real love wasn't about filling a void. It was about growth. He believed that love should challenge us, force us to confront our flaws, and inspire us to become better versions of ourselves. He called this spiritual love, and it was the only kind of love he saw as truly meaningful. But here's where things get complicated. Otto's views on love were deeply tied to his ideas about gender. He believed that men and women were fundamentally different in their inner essences, the masculine striving for individuality and morality, and the feminine tied to emotion and dependence. For Otto, this difference created tension in every romantic relationship. He thought men were drawn to women because they represented everything men feared and rejected in themselves: chaos, emotion, and dependency. And women, in turn, sought men because they represented strength and order. Here's the controversial part. Otto argued that women couldn't achieve true individuality or morality. He believed they were trapped in their feminine essence, unable to rise above their nature. This is where his philosophy has faced the harshest criticism, and for good reason. Yet, even in this flawed perspective, there's something provocative about his idea that love should make us grow. Maybe he was wrong about how men and women experience love, but the question remains, is love meant to comfort us or challenge us? The tragic end. By the time he was 23, Otto Weininger had poured his entire soul into his book, Sex and Character. But the world wasn't ready for it. The book was met with a mix of fascination and outrage. Some called him a genius, others called him a misogynist and a madman. Otto wasn't just facing criticism from the outside world, he was battling his own inner demons. He struggled with depression, self-doubt, and a deep sense of isolation. He had spent his life searching for truth, but the truth he found seemed to weigh too heavily on him. In October 1903, just months after publishing his book, Otto rented a room in the house where Beethoven had died. For Otto, Beethoven was the ultimate genius, a symbol of everything he admired. On October 4th, Otto ended his life in that room. He was just 23 years old. His death shocked those who knew him, but it also added to his mystique. Why did he do it? Some say he couldn't handle the backlash from his ideas. Others believe he was consumed by the same inner struggles he wrote about, the battle between chaos and order, between the ordinary and the genius within him. Otto's life was short, but his ideas left a mark. Some see him as a tragic genius, a young man who burned too brightly and too quickly. Others see him as a flawed thinker, a product of his time with outdated views. What's certain is that Otto Weininger's ideas force us to ask hard questions about love, morality, freedom, and what it means to be human. Otto Weininger's philosophy is hard to swallow. It's full of contradictions, bold claims, and ideas that feel outdated or even offensive today. But here's the thing. He wasn't afraid to ask the hard questions. He wanted to understand what it means to be human, even if it meant staring into the abyss. So, what do you think? Was Otto Weininger a genius, a product of his time, or just plain wrong? Let's talk about it in the comments. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the minds of history's most controversial thinkers.